I was 7 when the world I knew started to crack, like a rusted gear in my granddaddy's machine shop, grinding until it snapped. My name's Ava, 33 now, and if you'd asked me back then what family meant, I'd have said it was the smell of mom's apple pie, dad's calloused hands ruffling my hair, and the hum of Sterling machining keeping our small Ohio town alive. But that was before Diane slithered in, all fake smiles and venom, turning my home into a battlefield where I was the enemy. This is my story, and trust me, it's a wild ride, full of betrayal, grit, and a comeback that'll make your jaw drop. Picture Crestwood, Ohio, a place where the air smells like oil and regret. Rusted factory signs line the main drag, and on Friday nights, the whole town packs the bleachers for high school football, cheering like it's the Super Bowl. Sunday mornings, it's the Lutheran church where folks in their best flannel nod piously and gossip over coffee. Sterling Machining was the heart of it all. My granddaddy's pride, a machine shop that churned out parts for everything from tractors to airplane engines. It kept half the town fed, and the Sterlings? We were local royalty. People tipped their hats to Dad after church, thanked him for sponsoring the 4th of July picnic. But behind our picket fence, things were rotting. I was 4 when Mom died. Cancer, quick and cruel. I barely remember her face, just flashes, her laugh, her hands braiding my hair. Dad, Robert, was never the same after. He threw himself into the shop, leaving me with babysitters who smelled like mothballs. 3 years later, he brought home Diane. She was all perfume and lipstick, cooing about how she'd be my new mom. I wanted to believe her. God, I did. She'd brush my hair, bake cookies, call me sweetie. But then Haley came along, her daughter, and the mask slipped off faster than you can say, stepmonster. Haley was Diane's mini-me, all frilly dresses and dimples. Suddenly, Diane's cookies were for Haley, her hugs for Haley. Me? I was the spare, the kid who couldn't do anything right. My straight-A report cards? Not as creative as Haley's drawings, Diane would say, holding up some smudged finger painting like it was Picasso. I'd spend hours in the shop, sketching ways to make the lathes run smoother, showing Dad my ideas. He'd pat my head, promise to look later, but Diane would whisper something in his ear and my sketches ended up in the trash. Dad, who could stare down a union boss without flinching, turned to jelly around her. "Why can't you be more like Haley?" Diane would snap, and Dad would just nod, his eyes avoiding mine. I was 9 the first time I realized how deep the poison ran. It was Christmas, and I'd saved up my allowance to buy Dad a leather notebook for his shop schedules. I wrapped it myself, taped on a bow, and handed it to him with a grin. He opened it, smiled, said, "Thanks, kid." But Diane swooped in, shoving a glittery bracelet Haley made into his hands. "Isn't this just darling, Robert?" she gushed. Haley beamed, and Dad spent the rest of the night raving about her talent. My notebook sat untouched on the coffee table, buried under wrapping paper by morning. I cried myself to sleep that night, my pillow muffling the hurt. I kept thinking, if I try harder, they'll see me. They'll love me. The town didn't help. Crestwood loved the Sterlings. Our name was on the picnic banners, the church donation plaques. Nobody saw the cracks. At school, teachers praised Haley's charm while I got detention for talking back when a kid stole my lunch. Neighbors would stop by, cooing over Haley's curls, barely noticing me in my hand-me-down jeans. I started spending more time at the shop, hiding in the storage shed, surrounded by the clank of metal and the smell of grease. It was the only place I felt safe, like I belonged. I'd watch the workers, memorizing how they calibrated the machines, dreaming of the day I'd run the place. Granddaddy's shop was supposed to be my legacy, too. That's what Dad always said, until Diane got her claws in him. By 13, I was fighting a war I didn't understand. Diane's jabs got sharper. "You're too rough, Ava. Boys don't like girls who smell like motor oil." She'd say it with a smile, like she was helping me, but her eyes were cold. Haley would giggle, parroting her mom, and I'd bite my tongue so hard it bled. I started keeping a journal, scribbling down every slight, every time Dad looked through me. I'd write about Mom, piecing together memories from old photos, wondering what she'd think of me. Would she have fought for me? Would she have seen me? One night, I overheard Diane and Dad arguing in the kitchen. I was supposed to be asleep, but I'd snuck down for a glass of water. She's trouble, Robert, Diane hissed. Always poking around the shop, asking questions. She's not like Haley. She doesn't fit. Dad mumbled something I couldn't hear, but it wasn't a defense. My heart sank. I tiptoed back to my room, my bare feet cold on the hardwood, and wrote in my journal, "They don't want me. Nobody does." I was wrong about the nobody part, but I didn't know it yet. All I knew was the ache in my chest, the feeling that my own family was slipping through my fingers like sand. Looking back, I see it clear as day. Diane was playing a long game, and I was the pawn she needed out of the way. I kept pushing, kept trying to prove myself, but every step I took, she was there, twisting the knife. I didn't know how bad it would get, how one moment would shatter everything, but that's a story for later. For now, picture me at 14, still hopeful, still fighting, not knowing the storm was about to hit. I was a kid, dreaming of a place at the table, not realizing the table was rigged to collapse. I was 15 when my world didn't just crack. It exploded, like a faulty gear in Sterling Machining's oldest lathe, spraying shrapnel everywhere. If you thought my life with Diane and her golden child Haley was rough before, buckle up, because it got uglier. This is the part where I learned family could betray you deeper than any stranger, where I hit rock bottom and felt my heart get stomped on. Picture Crestwood, Ohio, its rusted factory signs glinting under a gray sky, the kind of place where secrets fester like mold in a damp basement. That's where I stood. A kid with a duffel bag, rain soaking my sneakers, kicked out of my own home. It started in the shop's storage shed where I'd hide to escape Diane's jabs. I was rummaging for a wrench, the air thick with grease and dust, when I saw them. Diane and Victor, our slick-talking supply guy, locked in a steamy embrace against a stack of crates. Her hands were in his hair, his lips on her neck, and I froze, my stomach churning like I'd swallowed motor oil. I ducked behind a shelf, heart pounding, barely breathing until they slipped out, laughing like teenagers. Victor, with his cheap cologne and snake oil grin, was bad news. Everyone knew he skimmed deals, but Dad trusted him because Diane vouched for him. Now I knew why. I stumbled back to the house, my mind racing. She's cheating on Dad. I wanted to tell him, but fear glued my mouth shut. What if he didn't believe me? What if Diane turned it around on me? A few weeks later, I got my answer, and it was worse than I'd imagined. I was home, sick, from school, really just dodging a math test I hadn't studied for, when I overheard Diane on the phone in the kitchen. I was grabbing a soda from the fridge, tiptoeing so she wouldn't hear me. Her voice was low, panicked. "Robert's sniffing around the books, Victor. He still thinks Haley's his little sterling heir, but we both know who her real daddy is." My hand froze on the fridge handle. The room spun. Haley isn't Dad's kid? My half-sister, the Princess Diane propped up like a trophy, was Victor's daughter. Dad was being played, raising another man's child, while Diane and Victor laughed behind his back. I slipped upstairs, my chest tight, and scribbled it all in my journal, every word burning into the page. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I'd seen the truth, and it was uglier than the rust on Crestwood's factory signs. Diane must have sensed I was onto her. Maybe she saw me lingering too long near the shop, or maybe she just smelled my fear. She went full snake in the grass, moving faster than I could keep up. One evening, I came home from school to find her in the living room, crying crocodile tears to Dad. "Robert, I didn't want to believe it, but Ava's been stealing from the shop," she sobbed, clutching a stack of papers. "She's been fudging the books, pocketing cash. I found these in her room." My jaw dropped. What? I hadn't touched the books. I barely knew how they worked. But there were the papers, numbers circled in red, looking damning as hell. Diane had set me up, and she'd done it like a pro. "Ava, explain this," Dad barked, his face red, veins bulging. I stammered, "I didn't, Dad. She's lying." But Diane cut in, voice dripping with fake pity. "She's jealous of Haley, Robert. She wants to ruin the family legacy." Haley stood there, eyes wide, clutching her stupid frilly dress like she was in a soap opera. I looked at Dad, begging with my eyes for him to see me, to trust me. But he didn't. "You're a disgrace," he growled, his voice low and final. Pack your things and get out. I stood there, stunned, rain starting to patter against the windows. Dad, please, I started, but he cut me off. Get out and don't come back. I ran to my room, tears blurring my vision, and shoved clothes into a duffel bag. My journal, a photo of Mom, a pair of socks, whatever I could grab. The rain was pouring now, a cold, relentless sheet, and I stood on the porch, bag slung over my shoulder, looking back at the house. Dad's silhouette was in the doorway, unmoving. You're no daughter of mine, he shouted, and the door slammed shut. I was 15, homeless and alone, the weight of Diane's lies crushing me. My sneakers squelched in the mud as I walked down the street. No plan, no hope, just a fire in my gut that wouldn't let me quit. They'll pay for this, I thought, rain mixing with my tears. One day, they'll see. That night, I curled up in an alley behind the diner, using my bag as a pillow, the smell of fryer grease and wet pavement choking me. My mind replayed it all, Diane's smirk, Dad's rage, Haley's silence. I kept thinking about Mom, how she'd sing to me when I was scared. What would she do? I wondered, shivering under a torn tarp. I didn't know, but I knew I couldn't stay down. Crestwood's church bells rang in the distance, mocking me with their fake peace. The town that worshipped the Sterlings didn't care about me. Nobody did. Or so I thought. Looking back, that betrayal was a knife to the heart, but it was also the spark that lit my fire. Diane thought she'd won, thought she'd buried me. She didn't know I was tougher than the steel in Granddaddy's shop. I was down, but I wasn't out. The streets were waiting, and they were brutal, but they'd teach me how to fight. That's the next part of my story, where I clawed my way back one gritty step at a time. But for now, picture me in that alley, rain pooling around me, a kid with nothing but a burning need to prove them wrong. I was 15, shivering in a Crestwood alley, rain pooling around me like the tears I wouldn't let fall anymore. This is where my story could have ended. A kid betrayed, homeless, with nothing but a duffel bag and a fire in my gut. But I didn't break. The streets were brutal, but they forged me into something tougher than the steel in my granddaddy's shop. This is the part where I clawed my way up, fought through scams and setbacks, and built a life from the ashes of Diane's lies. Picture me, a scrawny teenager with grease-stained hands, learning the hard way that the only person you can count on is yourself, until a few angels showed me different. Those first months on the streets were hell. I slept in alleys, under bridges, anywhere I could hide from the wind and the creeps who prowled at night. I'd scrounge for food, half-eaten burgers from the diner's trash, bruised apples from the market's discard bin. My sneakers fell apart, held together with duct tape I swiped from a hardware store. I dodged cops and social workers, terrified they'd drag me to a foster home where I'd be just another problem kid. Crestwood's church bells still rang every Sunday, but they sounded hollow now, like the town's fake smiles. Nobody looked for me. The Sterlings were royalty, and I was the outcast they'd erased. Then I met Grace. She was a homeless woman, maybe 50, with a face like weathered leather and eyes that saw right through you. I was digging through a dumpster behind the gas station when she tossed me a granola bar. "Eat, kid," she said, her voice rough but kind. "You've got fire in you. Don't let it go out." She shared her blanket that night and her story, kicked out by an abusive husband, too proud to beg. Grace wasn't just surviving, she was fighting, same as me. She taught me the ropes, which shelters were safe, how to spot a scam, how to blend into the shadows. Most importantly, she hooked me up with Mr. Miller, who ran a small auto parts shop in the next town over. Mr. Miller was a gruff guy, all flannel and coffee breath, but he didn't ask too many questions. "You strong enough to sweep floors?" he grunted, eyeing my skinny arms. I nodded, desperate. He gave me a job, minimum wage, cash under the table, and a cot in the back room. It wasn't much, but it was a lifeline. I worked my tail off, sweeping until my hands blistered, then learning the shop's machines. Drill presses, grinders, welders. I soaked up every detail, watching Mr. Miller troubleshoot a busted alternator or haggle with suppliers. At night, I'd collapse on that cot, my body aching, but I felt alive. For the first time, I was building something, even if it was just a chance to survive. It wasn't all smooth sailing. I got scammed out of my first $200 trying to buy a used car from a guy who vanished with my cash. I flunked my first GED test, too exhausted to study after 12-hour shifts. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, the weight of Diane's betrayal crushing me. Why didn't Dad fight for me? I'd wonder, staring at the ceiling, the hum of the shop's fluorescent lights buzzing in my ears. But Grace's word stuck. Don't let the fire go out. So I kept going, signing up for night classes at the community center, poring over textbooks by flashlight. I aced my GED on the second try, and Mr. Miller clapped me on the back, muttering, "Not bad, kid." That's where I met Ryan, in a business skills course. He was 22, lanky, with a crooked smile and a knack for numbers. He saw past my rough edges, my chipped nails, my thrift store clothes, and called me out one night over vending machine coffee. "Ava, you're a diamond in the rough," he said, grinning. "You've got brains and grit. Don't sell yourself short." I laughed it off, but my cheeks burned. Ryan wasn't like the Crestwood boys who'd mocked my oily hands. He saw me. We started studying together, then dreaming together. We fell in love, slow and steady, over late-night talks about starting our own business. He believed in me, and that belief was like oxygen to my battered soul. We launched our consulting firm for small manufacturers when I was 25. It was a grind. Long hours, maxed-out credit cards, and a tiny apartment that smelled like burnt coffee. We helped shops like Mr. Miller's streamline their processes, cut costs, boost profits. But it was rough. We lost a big client early on, some hotshot who thought we were too young and nearly went broke. I remember sitting on our lumpy couch, bills piling up, thinking, I've failed again. Ryan grabbed my hand, squeezed it, and said, "We're not done yet, Ava. We're tougher than this." He was right. We hustled, landed new clients, and pulled through. By 30, our firm was thriving, and we bought a house, a real home, with a yard and a swing set for the kids we dreamed of. Ella and Leo came along a few years later, and they were my everything. Ella, with her wild curls and fearless laugh, and Leo, all serious eyes and endless questions. I'd watch them play, their giggles filling the house, and feel this ache in my chest. Not pain, but gratitude. I'd built this life from nothing, no thanks to the Sterlings. Ryan and I were a team, raising our kids, growing our business, proving Diane wrong with every step. Crestwood was a distant memory, its rusted signs and church bells faded to a dull hum. I thought I'd left it all behind. Dad, Diane, Haley, the betrayal that nearly broke me. But the past has a way of creeping back. 3 months ago, my phone rang, and Dad's voice crackled through, weak and broken. "Ava, I need you," he said, and my stomach twisted. Sterling Machining was dying, and he wanted me to save it. I could have hung up, could have told him to go to hell, but something, maybe curiosity, maybe that old fire, made me listen. That's the next part of my story, where I face the ghosts I thought I'd buried. For now, picture me at 33, standing in my kitchen, Ella's crayons scattered on the table, Leo tugging at my sleeve, my life solid and real, built on my terms. I'm standing in the home I built with my own sweat, staring down the ghosts of my past. 3 months ago, Dad's voice cracked through my phone, begging me to save Sterling Machining, the shop that was supposed to be my legacy, until he and Diane threw me out like trash. Now, here they were, in my living room, expecting me to bail them out. This is the part where I faced them head on, where the truth I'd carried like a blade finally cut deep. Picture my house, warm with the smell of Ella's crayons and Leo's spilled juice, sunlight streaming through the windows, a far cry from Crestwood's rusted gloom. This was my turf, and I was done playing nice. Dad's call had caught me off guard. I was in my kitchen, stirring mac and cheese for the kids, when his number flashed on my phone. "Ava, please," he'd said, voice thin as paper. "The shop's dying. Diane's got no ideas, and Haley, she needs your help too." I nearly laughed. Haley, the golden child, needed me? He mentioned a dowry for her to marry some big-shot son, like that was my problem. Sterling Machining was bleeding cash, years of Diane's mismanagement, probably Victor's sticky fingers too. I agreed to meet, not out of love, but to see how far they'd fallen. I wanted to look Diane in the eye and let her know I'd won. They showed up on a Saturday, pulling into my driveway in a beat-up sedan that screamed desperation. Ryan was at my side, his hand brushing mine, a silent, "We've got this." Dad looked like he'd aged 20 years, gray hair thinning, shoulders hunched, eyes hollow. Diane still tried to play the classy lady, her lipstick too bright, her blouse ironed to a crisp, but her hands twitched, betraying her nerves. Haley, now in her 20s, had Victor's sharp cheekbones, his shifty eyes, no trace of Dad in her. She fidgeted, picking at her nails, avoiding my gaze. We sat in my living room, Ella's drawings taped to the walls, Leo's toy truck scattered on the rug. This was my world, and they were invaders. The small talk was painful. Diane cooed about my lovely home, her voice dripping with fake sugar. Dad mumbled about the weather, his hands clasped tight. Haley barely spoke, staring at her phone like it could save her. I let them squirm, sipping my coffee, letting the silence stretch until it snapped. Finally, Dad cleared his throat, nudged by Diane's sharp glance. "Ava, we need your help," he said, voice low. "Sterling Machining's in trouble. We thought maybe you could merge your company with ours, or, invest, for Haley's future, for the family." I set my mug down, slow and deliberate, and leaned forward. "For Haley's future?" I said, my voice calm but sharp, like a blade sliding from its sheath. "The sister you thought was your golden ticket to carry on the Sterling name?" Dad frowned, confused. Diane's smile froze, her eyes narrowing. Haley looked up, sensing the shift. I didn't blink. "Newsflash, Dad. She's not your kid. She's Victor's." The room went still, like the air before a storm. Dad's face drained of color, his hands shaking as he gripped the armrest. "No, that's not true," he stammered, his voice breaking. He turned to Diane, desperate. "Tell me she's lying." Diane sputtered. "She's making it up, Robert. She's always been jealous." But I was ready. I slid a folder across the coffee table. Bank records, old emails between Diane and Victor, scraps I'd pieced together over years of digging. "Read it," I said, my voice cold. "Payments to Victor, coded as consulting fees. Emails about keeping Robert in the dark. It's all there." Dad's hands trembled as he opened the folder, his eyes scanning the pages. Diane lunged for it. "That's fake." But Ryan stepped in, his voice firm. "Sit down, Diane." She froze, her face a mask of panic. Haley just sat there, eyes wide, whispering. "Mom, what's she talking about?" Then louder, her voice cracking. "Is it true? Am I not Dad's?" Diane tried to shush her, but Haley was unraveling, tears streaming down her face. "Tell me," she screamed, and Diane's silence was louder than any confession. Dad clutched his chest, his breath ragged, like the truth was crushing him. "All these years?" he whispered, his eyes locked on Diane. "You let me believe." He couldn't finish. Haley bolted from the couch, sobbing, and ran out the front door, her heels clicking on the pavement. Diane tried to spin more lies. "Robert, she's twisting everything." But the damage was done. Dad looked at me, his eyes wet, and for a second I saw the man who'd ruffled my hair, who'd promised me the shop. But then I remembered the rain, his voice roaring. "Get out!" That man was gone. I stood up, my voice steady. "You thought you could waltz in here, ask for my money, my life, to fix your mess. You threw me away, Dad." Diane made sure of it. "And Haley, she's collateral damage in your scam." I pointed to the door. "Get out." Diane grabbed her purse, muttering curses, and dragged Dad to his feet. He moved like a ghost, the folder still clutched in his hand. They left, the door slamming behind them, and I sank onto the couch, Ryan's arm around me. I didn't feel triumph, just a cold satisfaction, like I'd finally balanced the scales. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky orange over my quiet street. Ella ran in, waving a drawing of a rainbow, and Leo toddled after, giggling. I pulled them close, their warmth grounding me. Ryan kissed my forehead, whispering, "You did what you had to." I nodded, but my mind was still in that living room, replaying Dad's broken face, Haley's tears. I'd won, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like cutting out a piece of my past and watching it bleed. That showdown was the end of the Sterling's hold on me, but it wasn't the end of the story. The fallout was coming, and it would shake Crestwood to its core. That's the next part, where the truth buries them, and I keep building my life, brick by brick. For now, picture me holding my kids, the weight of that folder still heavy in my hands, knowing I'd fought for my truth and come out standing. I'm sitting in my kitchen with Ella's crayons scattered like confetti and Leo's laughter bouncing off the walls. The showdown with Dad, Diane, and Haley left a scar, but it also set me free. This is the final piece of my story where the Sterling's house of lies collapses, and I keep building my life, brick by gritty brick. Picture Crestwood, Ohio, its rusted factory signs now just a backdrop to my past, while my home hums with the chaos of kids and the warmth of a family I earned. The town's buzzing with their scandal, but me? I'm done with their drama. I've got my own legacy, and nobody's taking it from me. After that day in my living room, the Sterlings unraveled like a cheap sweater. Dad, broken by the truth, ordered a DNA test on the sly. The results hit him like a freight train. Haley wasn't his. The shock sent him to the hospital with a heart attack, his body finally buckling under years of Diane's lies. He pulled through. Barely. But he's a shell now, too frail to run Sterling machining, too shattered to face the town. He's holed up in their old house, the one I used to call home, staring at walls that echo with betrayal. I heard he keeps my old sketches from the shop in a box, like relics of a daughter he threw away. Part of me pities him, but then I remember that rainy night, his voice roaring, "Get out!" Pity doesn't erase that. Diane's a wreck, drowning in whiskey and dodging lawsuits. Small-time investors in Sterling machining, folks who trusted the Sterling name, smelled her dirty deals and came knocking. She'd been funneling money to Victor for years, coding it as supplies or consulting. Now, with the shop tanking, those investors want blood. Diane's name is Mud in Crestwood. At the diner, where folks used to kiss up to her, waitresses whisper about the Sterling scandal over plates of greasy fries. Church potlucks hum with gossip. Old ladies clucking about how Diane ruined a good man. I don't buy that. Dad made his choices. But it's satisfying to see her fall. Haley's life imploded too. She called off her fancy wedding, the one Diane was banking on to secure the family's status. Turns out, her big-shot fiancé didn't want a bride tied to a broke, scandal-ridden family. Haley tried tracking down Victor, maybe hoping for a father to replace the one she lost. Bad news? Victor died years ago in a car wreck, running from debts and probably a few angry husbands. She's adrift now, texting me sometimes, her messages desperate. "Ava, do you hate me? I didn't know." I don't answer. I don't hate her. She was a kid, same as me, caught in Diane's web. But I don't owe her my forgiveness either. She got the love I begged for, and when I was kicked out, she didn't say a word. That's her burden, not mine. Crestwood's two-faced as ever. Back when I was homeless, nobody lifted a finger, too scared of crossing the Sterlings. Now that I'm on top, they're all smiles, inviting me to the county fair like we're old pals. I went once, just to see their faces. Neighbors who'd ignored me as a kid now clapped me on the back, saying, "You did good, Ava." I smiled, nodded, but inside, I was rolling my eyes. Hypocrites. The church bells still ring, the factory signs still rust, but I'm not their charity case anymore. I'm the woman who beat their golden family at their own game. Sometimes I think about Dad. He's my father, the man who raised me. Until he didn't. I wonder if I could forgive him. Let go of the pain. I tried picturing it once, sitting in my backyard while Ella and Leo chased fireflies. I imagined calling him, saying, "Let's start over." But then I hear his voice from that night. "You're no daughter of mine." And the wound rips open. Forgiveness sounds nice, like something you'd hear at one of Crestwood's sermons, but I'm not there yet. Maybe I never will be, and that's okay. I don't need his approval to be whole. Me, I'm good, better than good. Ryan and I are expanding our consulting firm, signing clients from Cleveland to Columbus. We just turned a spare room into a play space for Ella and Leo, complete with a tire swing and a chalkboard wall where they scribble their dreams. Ella's got my fire. She'll argue with a wall if it looks at her wrong. Leo's quieter, always tinkering. taking apart toys to see how they work. Watching them, I feel this ache, not of loss, but of pride. This is my legacy, built from scratch. No thanks to the Sterlings. Every giggle, every sticky hug is a middle finger to the past. The other day, I found my old journal, the one I kept as a kid, tucked in a box of Mom's photos. I flipped through it, reading my teenage scrawl, every slight from Diane, every time Dad looked through me. I expected to feel rage, but instead, I just felt calm. Those pages were a map of my pain, but they also showed my strength. I survived. I thrived. I closed the journal, slid it back in the box, and walked outside to watch the sunset. The sky was pink and gold, like a promise of something new. That's my life now. A canvas I paint every day with colors I choose. Crestwood can keep its gossip, its church bells, its greasy diner fries. I don't need their applause or their pity. I've got Ryan, Ella, Leo, and a business that's mine, built on my terms. The Sterlings thought they could break me, but they didn't know I was forged in fire, tempered by the streets, and sharpened by every betrayal. This is my story's end, or maybe its beginning. Picture me in my backyard, Ella on my shoulders, Leo tugging at my hand, the future wide open. I'm Ava, and I'm unstoppable.